Enough. So now I'm recording. Okay, so in that case, since we don't have to wait, so everybody, Connor is my course coordinator for 120. And so over the summer, I don't expect you'll have course coordinators, but they're a beautiful innovation that we have in the department. Just started them a couple of years or a couple of semesters ago. And so he's kind of the sergeant to my lieutenant. He goes around and manages and makes sure that everything is working, so I can kind of focus on um, teaching the core materials of the course and whatever all that is requiring. I've been working with the GradeScope auto graders a bunch, and then after I release the GradeScope auto graders, then magically they end up having rubrics attached. So I'm told that Connor is in charge of that. So I asked if he'd bring us in because when I tried, I actually looked at how to create a rubric, and for some reason, it was not obvious to me. So I thought, if you want, could you just take us through something in 120 or in 121, screen share it and show us what you're doing about
Yeah,
how you set up a. So the idea here is that we auto grade for some portion of the score, and then we hand grade for part of it. Yeah, for who's teaching 120? That is Ashik. I don't know what you're going to do in the
No, I'm
summer.
I'm
Oh,
I'm
that's
teaching
that'll
120.
be Dilshadur.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dilshadur. Yeah. So our norm in 120, and I'm not sure if this is the same in the summer, but our norm in 120 is that we'll have a short programming assignment and then a long. So we actually have 2 a week. And in that case, we often have the short program entirely auto-graded and only hand grade the long. So there's a variety of ways we can set this up. So Connor, you walk us through what you do, and I appreciate it.
awesome. So here's for long problem 14. I'm setting up the rubric for that today. It's pretty straightforward once you there's a couple like hidden places where you actually have to enable the auto grading. So we can see right now that the score is out of 30. So that means that the auto grader only goes up to 30 points. And that's going to be kind of important in just a second when we see
Where is that
um,
configured?
that would be so how much the auto grader is actually worth.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're going to get to that in just a sec.
Okay, sorry.
So we know the auto grader can only go up to 30 points. So we know we don't want the auto grader to be worth any more than that on the assignment. So once we go to edit assignment, we can go down here to enable manual grading. And we can choose whether we want to hide, show certain rubric items. Then
Can
we'll
you
hit
describe the
save.
difference there?
Yeah. Let's see. So show all rubric items, that means that just when they get their feedback back, when we publish the grades, they can see all rubric items. Hide means we can't see any of them, or show only the applied. So if they missed a point here, they can see what that's for, but none of the other rubric items.
So I think when you've graded it, you normally have a show all. Is
Yeah.
that how you do it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't have a strong opinion. When I've done it in the past, I've done a hide. I'm sorry, not hide all. The show only applied,
Okay.
so that they can see how they were graded. But I always thought that there's a certain amount of discretion, so that they're not comparing to what other people might have earned for something. But I don't have a strong opinion about how you ought to configure that. But
The reason why I have it set up this way is just because most of it is style. We're not
okay,
doing, and for graphics, it's a little bit different. So I might set that up to be only for applied.
okay,
But since it's style, it just shows kind of what we're looking for, what they did well, what they didn't do well. That was at least my methodology behind it.
sure, thanks.
So that is really all you need to do for this first part to actually enable the manual grading. And that takes us to the outline. So the auto grader is already set up to 30 points. Usually when we do this, if we make the assignment out of 100, um, then auto grader will automatically be out of 100 points. But since the auto grader goes up to 30, everyone will end up with like 30 points out of 100, and it changes the total score. So by setting the total score possible for auto grader, that kind of keeps the grades proportional to how they should be.
And by the way, when you said
Mhm.
outline, there's the tabs over here,
Right.
and so that allows you to jump through between. the outline, which is the project design and the submissions and the grading status and reviewing the grades and all that sort of that those 5 circles are representing 5 classic steps of the grading process.
Right. So in order to get back to this page, if we want to edit the point values or set up another question, we can go back and click on this top circle, which is the actual outline. So to set up the rest of this, I might do, for example, style, we typically do out of 30 points. And then another question, since this one had a graphical portion, graphics, and that one will be out of 40 points. Yes, I added that up correctly. So style is something that is really consistent throughout all of them. So what we can use is we can actually reuse rubrics that we've used in past assignments. So with that, we go to import. We select the class that we want to import the assignment from. If it's like reusing from a previous semester, we can actually go down and find previous semesters if you were in that grade scope class. But for the most part, we typically just use the current semester. And so I know assignment 12 had just style and nothing else weird. So that's short 12. Where did long 12 go? There's long 12. Style, and it shows us the preview of all the different possible rubric items. So since this is something consistent, we can just import that, and that creates the entire rubric really, really quickly. For the next one, for graphics, that's something that's going to be a little bit more unique since not all of our assignments have graphics. So I can actually create the rubric manually. So for each one, you can just do add rubric item. And then you can either choose positive or negative scoring up in these rubric settings up here. And this, of course, comes with a ceiling and a floor setting if you want to have above 100 or below 0. We typically do a negative rubric, but it's really up to you guys. So we put the point value here, followed by whatever description for the project description is. So for this one, they're having to animate quicksort. So if they just draw a static image to the screen, I would maybe say that's 5 points out of the 40 for having something draw and still performing quicksort, but not actually doing the animation for quicksort. So I would say minus 35 only draws static image. And so we typically have one for incorrect if it doesn't do any graphics at all. Minus 40. And that'll keep it in check with each one of these, each different section. Another thing we can do is we can create what are called rubric groups. So if I were to say, put both of the style and the graphics into one, I could maybe have a group that is just graphics, and it has all the graphics portions in here. And that's just done by doing this create group button. With each of these answer groups, there are a couple different settings. You can have the select one if you want it radio button style, or checkbox with select many. And that's really all there is to this.
So I think probably the key thing that I'd overlooked, because I'd gone hunting for this before, is the enable manual grading in the project settings.
Yeah, it's kind of hidden in the middle of the page.
Yeah. And so, yeah, okay. So we could, I don't know, like I've always configured things identically, so I don't know which one overrides the other. But in terms of the autograder value, we set that in the project settings, we set it in the rubric, and then my grading script also does the same thing.
So the project outline will show how many points it's worth. So if we make it worth 100 points, but the autograder itself will only assign 90, then everybody in the class, the highest they could get would be 90 out of 100 on the autograder portion.
Interesting.
So it won't scale. So if you give 90 and make it worth 100 points, you have to actually make them worth the same point value.
Okay. Well, there's a quirk of that I'm wondering if there's a detail you've overlooked. I don't know whether that's true or not, but
I've been trying to hunt for that as well.
The best practice is, well, so the quirk I was wondering about is that when I produce the autograder output, it includes a max score in there. And so if I said that they got 90 out of 90, would they scale that to say you've earned 100% of the topic? And that's something I've not experimented with. The best practice is make sure everything lines up properly so that you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And I'll be showing you how we can set up auto graders, at least for those of you who who are going to be using that sort of a thing. So, okay. So, do we have any questions for Connor? That was pretty quick and easy. I was going to release him, but I wanted you guys all to be able to jump on and get any clarifications you wanted.
Yeah, just one question. How do we set up the auto grader?
So yeah, that's gonna be with Russ.
I'll show you how to set up the auto grader.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, Connor is welcome to learn, but it's not something he's done.
As far as going for like exams and other types of questions, it follows the exact same format. You can do, instead of just selecting programming assignment at the very top, when we go back to 120. Assignments. So in order to actually add an assignment, you have to click on the add the assignments tab on the left here, and then you can add assignment down on the right. So this was a programming assignment, but each one follows a very similar structure. The only one you can't do any sort of answer groupings on is the online assignment beta, which is, and not everybody has, you have to opt into that, so.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you, Connor.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
guys.
thank you.
Thanks, Connor.
Yeah, thank you.
It was nice meeting you all.
All right. Thanks for dropping by.
Yeah, I'll see you guys.
All right, cool. So I am, as we speak, I'm adding all of you as TAs to 120, so that if you want to either look at how 120 is configured, or if you want to copy anything out of it, like importing rubrics like Connor was showing you, you'll have it in your list of available things you could do. All right, so while I'm entering a couple more names, we have any questions about anything at all?
It's not related to AutoGrader, but I have some updates about like my course.
Absolutely, yeah. Shoot.
Yeah, so it's so last time when we talked, you remember like I had to go talk to Misuda about like how he takes the course and how's it's going. So I talked with him, and what he said, like what he started with is don't follow what I'm doing. I'm like, what? Why? And he's like he's still experimenting. He doesn't know like how he wants to like do certain things. Like, so he's saying like it's better if you follow someone's approach who's like already established and the departments has been like that,
Okay.
following that structure. So do you? So I think like you've taken it like for a couple of years, and is there anyone that you know of, or like, so like I can have all of you guys' materials and then combine and make something?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to give you all of mine, and it will. You could also talk to Eric Anson, Anson. He's another lecturer in the department.
Okay.
He's taught it a number of times. He's taught it more than me. I think Shomo has taught it, but I think it's been a long time. And last time he taught it, it was with Eric anyway. So most of what he has, I think, is already encoded in the other materials that we'd give you. But yeah, let me write that down so I don't forget it.
Cool, thanks.
Create another to-do list here. But yeah, I will send you. All right. So 352 materials to Ahmad. All right, cool. All right, what else?
I just had a question.
okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So when I'd emailed Lester initially like a month ago, he had said that I should expect Martin to send me like a syllabus of required topics, but Martin just sent me Lester's. So should I just assume that everything Lester covers is what's like, because Lester told me to cover enough to get people to the next course. So should I
Yeah.
just assume that everything he's teaching is what should be taught there and then just do that?
So I'm happy to go through that because I'm familiar both with 245, but also what it feeds into.
Yeah.
So we can go through that, and I would say that your plan of record should be to cover what Lester covers,
Okay.
but I can tell you like what's critical.
Okay,
And
that'd be great.
it'll mostly be the things that are at the tail end of the list anyway. But generally, when I'm facing a course like this, what I'll do is I'll stuff the things that are most important and most confusing towards the front, give the students time, make sure we hit it, make sure we've got time to do homeworks on it and all that. And then if there are topics that I ought to hit, but it's not the end of the world if I have to skip, you can push those to the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. Cool.
So probably, since that's not helpful for the rest of
Yeah.
us, we could talk offline, or I don't know if you'll have time after this meeting. I forget what
Yeah.
your schedule's like.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so what
Yeah.
else do we have?
Yeah, I have a question. So I forgot to ask Tyler about this one, but is there anyone who has taken the 210 in summer before?
Is there anyone who's done 210 in summer before? You know, I ought to know that because I actually worked with, I think there was another grad student who took it or who did it in last summer, but I
Mhm.
don't remember who it was. Martine could help you with that.
Okay.
Or could we even, is it in the old records? All right. So
I tried to search that, but couldn't find anything. So
yeah,
It
you can,
wasn't Chin Mai, was it?
I was working with Chin Mai last summer. I don't remember what class they were teaching. And let's actually, there is something it's a little bit of a long shot, but it might work. Okay, that's not there. Let's do a search, and we probably can't. Yeah, we can't search for old semesters.
yeah.
All right, so let me do a quick email search while somebody asks whatever next question we've got. And no, Chiang Mai had 245 last summer. Let's see, Ting had 120. So, wait a minute, was Wei teaching last summer? I forget. $210 summer, but it would have been last year. Summer. So okay, so you would have to ask who's taught it over the summer. I
Okay.
don't
Yeah.
I don't have
I'll
that
do that.
information readily available.
It's okay.
Yeah. What else? So I've got questions for you all, but I thought after we've filled out whatever you have.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned about a book of Python. So
The Python book is that in the to-do list that I lost, or
you like
my son found it?
on
I'm sorry. What's that?
excuse me.
I'm not hearing anything right now.
Can you hear me?
I
Yeah.
can hear you now.
Yeah, the name of the book is Python Essential Reference, right?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
by Beasley.
So,
Yeah. I don't
which,
recommend it as a textbook. It is definitely not student compatible. But for
yeah,
somebody who's a skilled computer science programmer who's just looking to either learn Python or get a deeper understanding of Python, it's really,
yeah.
really good.
So should I let someone in the department know that I need this book or something?
Yeah, so I would ping Crystal and ask her if she could get you a copy.
Okay.
Crystal
Okay. Thank
Soto.
you.
And you know, if she has a question about what you're using it for, because like I said, I'm not sure exactly what the deal is with grad students. I can explain to her why I recommended it to you. I don't. Are you in town?
Yeah, I'm in town.
Okay. So if there's any problem with the department, I'll just let you borrow my hard copy.
Okay. Thank
You know, I'll stand outside your door and I'll throw it at you. You know.
you. Okay.
All right. What else we got? Thank you.
So I have one question.
Yeah.
I have I was thinking to teach the contents of Corman's book for CS 345
Okay.
because in 445, which the students will enroll next, usually it is some professors actually teach the Corman book, so I think that it will be helpful for them. And what I was planning is I will write the contents in the whiteboard of Zoom, and then I will video it, and then I will upload it to some YouTube or some web page so that the online students can follow it later. So does it sound like a plan or?
Well, so before I go to the specifics of your plan, my first point of feedback would be, and I'm speaking as someone who regularly violates this own rule, but I'm telling you, don't make the same mistake I do. Don't create the class. And maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying, but it kind of sounds to me like you're envisioning how the class might be and saying, okay, well, this is how I'm going to create all the materials. And maybe if I'm misunderstanding, please tell me I'm misunderstanding. I will say that is a path that leads to madness. You know, you just will not sleep for 3 months. And
No,
so
I mean
go ahead.
the contents and the homeworks and the exams, everything will be ready. What I will say, what what topics I am going to cover, everything will be ready at least before 1 week
Okay.
on the lecture. So I
Yeah.
will just follow that and record that, and so I have to video that I have to record that because some students will be online.
Oh,
And
everybody's online, right? So
yeah, I mean, some of them might not enroll in the class. Sorry, I mean, some of them don't attend in the class, but they will follow the videos. It happens sometimes because they have a conflict with the schedule. All right.
I apologize. I got interrupted right at the. I'm sorry. A text came in. So you were saying some people wouldn't enroll, or
I mean, so I think when I was a TA of CS 345, I found that some students were not attending the class because they have a conflict, but they were following the lectures later. So
right?
for them it is always helpful to record everything.
Oh
And
well, we're going to have to record everything. That right? We're not going to have anybody in person. All of our students are 100% online for the summer.
Yes, yes, I get it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so if all the lectures, I mean, I prepare it like, for example, handwritten in a note, and then I just follow it. And what do you think?
So the very first semester I taught 345. I assigned Corman as a textbook because that's what I think I got my very baseline from John Kay or something like that. Um, what I found was that Corman is an incredible book, but it's not a book that's appropriate for undergrads. Now, John Kay will disagree with me, okay? And I totally grant you that John Kay and Alon and Kobarov all think that undergrads ought to be reading Corman, and I'm not opposed to introducing that, but Corman is so dense. It is
Yes,
so dense. It's written for experts by experts. The students will not understand what's going on without a substantial amount of elaboration around it.
yeah,
Um,
I completely agree with you. So I will not cover the deep stuffs of that book. You know, I will cover the basic stuff. So in that book, there are like advanced chapters, and there are like non-advanced chapters. So
right.
I
My
think
experience is that all of what we cover, at least in the 345 that I taught, it ends in chapter 6, I think, or maybe chapter 7. It's like the first little section of that gigantic book. That's what our 345 is.
yeah, I mean, I was, yeah, I actually looked at the contents of the book recently a couple of times, and I found that after, like, as you said, there are a couple of initial chapters that is appropriate for that course, because that is just an introduction of
Right.
algorithms with focus in data structure. I completely agree with you. So yeah.
Okay. So I'm not opposed to having Corman as a textbook, provided that you're really clear on the fact that like every page of Corman is probably going to be an hour or more of discussion. You know, that's not an absolute number, but I think that's a good rule of thumb. You cannot just simply read out what Corman says. You can't write it on a whiteboard and expect students to understand.
No,
You're
no,
gonna
no,
have
no,
to
no.
spend.
Yeah,
You're gonna
yeah,
have to like really
yes,
explain
yes.
why it says what it does and what it means.
Yeah, so what I'm planning to do is, first I will take like couple of like 7, 8, or around some number of chapters from that book. And even I have gone through the book recently, and I saw that even in those chapters there are notations that the undergrad will never understand. So what I will take is the basic concepts, and I will write down the basic concept elaborately in some lecture note
Sure,
before
sure.
1 week or 2 week on the class, and I'm pretty much sure that is going to be covered,
Right.
and then yeah, then I will just follow it. Yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah. So it, it sounds like a plan, right?
I'd love to see like to have a week or so of what you're planning to do and actually see how it's working out. Because I guess I don't have a lot of clarity about what you're planning.
Yeah, sure.
And uh, so I'd love to, if there was time to give some feedback on that, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. So what I can do in 1 or 2 weeks, I can prepare the lecture notes for initial 2 classes, and I can
Sure.
share it with you. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great, and I'm happy to give some feedback on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. What else?
I have one question. So, given the current situation, and you mentioned to like using Examity for exams.
Right.
So I was planning to use that, and I did see. I just went to their site for the 425 final exam setup, and I saw notification saying that we have to request the Examity service at least 2 weeks prior to an exam.
Yes, yes, that is true. So
Is there, so given, I mean, it's a little bit outside the scope of this topic discussion, but is there any like special request option given the current situation? Because we only started discussing how we would take the final exam, and we actually didn't know that Examity had this 2 weeks of deadline. So I'm just asking the regular stuff.
okay, I'm sorry. Are you asking regarding 425 or regarding our summer teaching?
425 first, and then I'll continue over on 210.
Yeah. So the 2-week window is something that the instructor needs to do. Now, this semester is so strange. Maybe there's additional requirements that I'm not aware of, but there is a 2-week window of you need to get Examity configured on your D2L site and you know, talk with Examity about how you're going to run the final, make sure you can get all the students up to speed. That 2-week window, now everything is crazy, so maybe they're in a terrible place right now. But historically, that 2-week window has not been a hard window, but you send an email to Nina and you're like, I'm really, really sorry that I forgot, like I've done this. I'm really, really sorry that I forgot to do this. We're down to 10 days. Can we get this done? And she'll make it work for you. But
Okay.
2 weeks is definitely the best practice. Now, if you have not talked to Examity yet, I would say send the email today and say,
Okay.
because the answer might be that they're so short-staffed that they can't serve you, and you need to find another plan.
Okay.
But
That's helpful.
if they've got the staff, then they hopefully you can make this work.
Okay. Oh, so another question. So now that this is actually a good point. You mentioned that they might be short on staff. So the next is, now this is again back to summer course. Have you ever taken any exam on Gradescope? Exam, not a quiz or assignment.
So I haven't taken one, but I ran a Gradescope exam. Actually, I ran a pair of them earlier in this semester.
Mm-hmm. And how was the experience? Because I mean, I believe the main concern setting up an exam on Gradescope is the academic integrity.
Yeah.
That's
yeah. Go ahead.
So what's your experience? I mean,
my experience was that I knew that academic integrity was going to be a big deal. Mm-hmm. And so I punted on it. I said, there's no possible way that I can enforce some sort of a lockdown. So I changed all my policies. I always do a closed notes exam. This time I said it's an open notes, open book exam. And I gave them 24 hours to do it instead of 1. So that if they wanted to just pour through the notes and get all the answers, I said, okay. We did have some examples of students who I asked them a definition of something. They gave an extremely precise answer. And so my TAs Googled for it and found there it was on a website. Well, and so they're thinking this is an academic integrity issue. And I kind of agree with them. But on the other hand, it's an open book, open notes exam. So they're supposed to be able to look for resources. Mm-hmm. And what they gave was an extremely correct answer. So I was left in the lurch there, and I decided I didn't want to fight that fight about whether it was academic integrity, because is open notes means that you can Google for an excellent answer? I don't know. I had another version of that where I had, in my cloud computing course, I had told everybody in my very quick Unix intro, I told them that Unix was written in the 70s. And I had a bunch of students who said, it was originally created in '69. I thought, where did they come up specifically with 69? And I actually marked a few of them wrong. And then I saw so many of them that said exactly 69 that I went and I looked it up on Wikipedia. And Wikipedia said that the very first version of Unix was written in late 69. And then as they adapted it, it really came to the fore in the 70s. Well, so I said, you know, I didn't tell them they couldn't look on Wikipedia, and they gave the answer that was more technically correct than I had in the slides, so I let it slide. If you want to do, I mean, so you can make a Gradescope exam work, but you just have to understand that you're living in a different world with different set of expectations. Especially in my cloud computing course, the exam grades were way inflated because there was so much that they could just, I was asking them questions that in the end were directly out of the notes. Cloud computing is a little weird about how it exactly works. And most of your classes, you're going to be able to build on, you know, I taught you this algorithm, I taught you this definition, you know, we went through and we ran homeworks, and you know, you've done synthesis on the problem, so you can do complex variations on it. 346 cloud computing is so much of like a familiarization. I told you this hand wavy thing about a tool, and then we went and we pushed some buttons and turned things on. Well, can you tell me about the hand wavy thing? You know, you can't really judge the students for having hand wavy responses. So
Okay, so
that's a difficult thing in 346.
Okay, so here's my plan, what I was thinking of. So given this particular situation regarding the exams, what I was thinking, so in 240, in 210, what I've seen, seen from Tyler's course syllabus, there were 4 midterms, 1 final exam, drills every week, and about 9 or 10 programming assignments.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
Are you serious that there were 4? So it's 4 plus 1?
Yes.
Wow.
So yeah.
How long were those full hour-long exams?
Oh, that I don't know completely. I haven't looked at the time.
Okay.
So I'm not sure of that. But I think it's on Gradescope on the outline of the exam, so it should be there. I'll look at it. So what I am thinking is that I'm planning to take the midterm exams on Gradescope. Okay. And it's I plan to set it as a completely open book, open notes exam. And instead of a final exam, I was thinking a kind of a little bit complicated project instead of a final exam. So is that doable, or does this sound a good plan to you?
Okay, so there's a whole spectrum of answers here. First of all, with the final, you're treading on thin ice. Now, you can talk to Martin and you can get his answer about exactly what the university policy is. But I will give you the quote as best I remember it, which is that there has to be a final exam, or if there's a project, it has to be a summative project, I think was the term they used, which means it has to be a project that somehow encapsulates and touches on all the things the students have learned. And so
yeah, absolutely. So that's actually my plan. So in the course, let me just give you an outline. So I've been already given a course assessment document by Martin. So that's provided from the department.
Okay.
And that particular assessment actually has a small project. And that small project already touches almost all the parts of the course outline of all the materials, all the topics that a student is expected to learn. I was thinking of extending that project a little bit more so that it covers everything, like 100% of the overall course. and then give it as a project to the students, so they would have to have a clear idea of all the topics taught over the semester?
Well, I gotta say I'm intrigued, but I'm also worried. So what I would say
Yeah,
is,
it's
yep,
pretty hard. Yeah.
right, yeah. So I would make sure that you like, and maybe you already have this from Martine, but make sure that you're clear on exactly what the policy says.
Mhm.
Second, I would go to Tyler and I would say, here's my idea. Um, Ideally, I'd like you want to actually have this actually drawn up, and here's what the actual project will be,
Mhm.
so that Tyler can give you feedback about whether he agrees that it's a good summative project. Um, I definitely know that you can have summative projects instead of finals. It can be done. Um, but there's a lot of particularly tenured faculty, and I'm not speaking in this department. I've just heard about the university.
Mhm.
There's a lot of tenured faculty who try to dodge the final because it's a
Mhm.
lot of work for the instructor, and they get their hand slapped. For somebody who already has tenure, that hand slap is not too painful, but you as a grad student don't want to be the recipient of one of those, if you know what I
Okay.
mean.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
I got that.
so
Okay.
just make sure you've completely dotted your I's, crossed your T's.
Okay. Then the second option, if I do go for the final exam, is it from your side, do you think it's okay to hold the final exam on Gradescope?
I certainly wouldn't call it a best practice.
Okay.
It is what I'm going to do this semester. I'm doing it this semester because Examity does not have capacity to support my classes.
Mhm.
If Examity had the ability to support my classes, I would do it. I would do it. I'm sorry. I would do Examity, not Gradescope.
Okay.
My experience going through Gradescope is that it's going to be really, really hard to create. You can create a great summary exam, but it's going to be really difficult to create a rigorous exam. Um, Now, one of the things that I did that made things really easy on my students, that other instructors have not. So you could talk to Tyler. I think John Macerda has done a Gradescope exam as well. I think Ben did a Gradescope exam. They can give you alternative perspectives. Um, I found it really difficult to create an exam that was appropriately difficult, so that you have to be really careful. I want to be precise about what I say here.
Mhm.
I never want an exam to be a punishment. I never want it to be like, it's certainly, I'm not trying to create gates. I'm definitely never trying to drive anybody out, but I am trying to do a little bit of a sorting function where I can figure out the difference between my A and my B students. And also down at the bottom, I want to know the difference between the students who have a C because they're spending 40 hours a week on projects and they're constantly in office hours and they barely get the projects done, and the students who have a C because they actually kind of understand things more or less. And so having an exam of not extreme but of moderate challenge is really useful to sort out those students at various points in the grade scale.
Mhm.
I don't think my exams earlier in the semester succeeded at that, and I'm continuing in my plan because I don't want to cause chaos to my students. But I really expect that my finals are going to be inadequate as well. So over the summer, I want to do differently. Now,
Okay.
if go ahead.
Here's what I'm going to do. Given all these comments, I'll ask Examity if they can at least support the final exam,
Right?
and just in case they say no, or if in case they say that it's a 50-50 chance, only then I will switch for Gradescope.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
reasonable thing.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Cool. All right.
Can I ask?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So my courses are actually asynchronous. So so I think all I need to do is I have to record the lectures and upload it because there will be no interaction since
Right.
it is asynchronous. Okay. Yes. So this is a 3-credit course, and I am assuming that I will make 2 lectures every week, ranging from I mean it's 1 hour and 15 minutes every lecture, right?
Yeah. So so let's scale this. I have to work the numbers here. Let me bring up. I'll share my notepad so we can work these numbers out normally. All right. So, and you could drop in your own numbers. So an ordinary, you got 3 credit hours. So during the fall or the spring, that would be 3 hours per week, which generally means either 3 50-minute lectures or 2 75-minute lectures. Now, we're in the summer, so the summer is 1.5 speed. So if we were teaching this synchronously, what you would generally expect would be something along the lines of 4 50-minute lectures or 3 75-minute lectures. So a typical way 345 might run might be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 15 minutes at a time. Or a classic one we might do is we might do 2 lectures that are like, 100, 110 minutes, something like that. So that's what your normal summer would be. Now, go ahead.
But the classes are recorded, right? The classes are not interactive, so
Right,
time.
that's where I'm trying to scale all this.
Sorry.
I'm working you through the steps of my thought process here.
Sorry.
All right, but online and asynchronous. So I have not taught an asynchronous course, but I have been told by other people who teach it that when there's no questions involved, it tends to speed up your delivery. So I would say about 75% the regular speed, or 75% of the regular time. So an hour becomes 40 to 45 minutes, something like that. So when I'm thinking about this, what I'm thinking is if our target synchronously would have been 225 minutes per week, then we're talking order of magnitude 160 to 170 minutes of video per week.
Okay.
Now, what I don't recommend is that you do gigantic chunks, because there's 6 of us here and we're highly interactive, and I already know that some of you are a little bored by this discussion. Even, right? I mean, let's just be honest, right? Russ talks too much. If you can't see the students and they can't see you, or I mean, they can see you, but they know that you can't see them, they're going to get more bored more quickly. So I would recommend that you not do 2 videos. I would recommend for something like that you would do 4 to 5 videos per week. Figure with a target of 30 to 40 minutes each. A video that goes longer than 40 minutes probably means that you ought to break it up into smaller chunks and allow them to breathe a little bit. And within each of those, something like 4 to 7 play, pause it questions per video. That's very rough numbers, and these are numbers from someone who's never done play, pause it before. So these are my guesses, but I think that's what I'm targeting personally, and I would think similarly for other 3-credit courses. A 4-credit course, everything goes up by a third.
Okay, so one question. So I use a Mac, and what software do you recommend to record the lectures in my machine
You
before
use a
uploading it in
Mac.
Playproject? Yeah.
So I don't know. Frankly, the thing I would recommend most, if hopefully this is all available, what I would recommend most is our recording studio, because it's just beautiful. Let me. Ben sent me a video. Actually, it's not a video. He sent me a PlayPosit link, and
But
yeah.
the
By the
recording
way, we want to
studio is,
go ahead.
but the recording studio is in the university, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
Are
okay.
you off-site or out
No,
of
no,
town?
no. I am in Tucson, but I think I have to take permission from the departmental head to, yeah.
Yes, we don't know at this point whether it's going to be available. So I don't actually know what the best recording software is if you're working on your own Mac. I would start Googling. Don't pay money for it, because especially with Mac, I think it might have built-in software. But at the very least, you ought to be able to download some sort of a decent piece
Yeah,
of software.
you can use either QuickTime that's built into Mac. You
Okay.
can use QuickTime or the OBS Studio that's also available for Mac.
Yeah, I use OBS. I'm not speaking as an expert, but I went looking for recording software a while ago. OBS seemed like it's free, but it's just close enough to professional quality that it's got a whole bunch of nice bells and whistles. But then again, you know, QuickTime is probably excellent because Mac has that reputation. I will send you all this link. In fact, I'll just put it in the chat. But let me show you what Ben. This is Ben showing me how a PlayPosit video works for him. So let's see here. Are we? Can you all hear the audio? Let me look. There's
No.
there's an audio somewhere here. When we share screen.
At the bottom, there should be a.
Yeah, there's somewhere that says include system video or share computer sound. There we go.
In this video, I'm going to be talking about set operations, which, sets is a topic that has already been covered in the class. So you should know the basics of what a
So
set
Ben's
is
on
in Python.
in front of the green screen
but
inside
this
the
video
studio
is going
here.
to cover a couple of different functions
what his
slash
iPad
operations
is
that
actually
can be done with
what's
sets, both kind of in general, but
what the
also in
background is.
Python specifically. So this slide here summarizes.
So it goes through. You can jump ahead to an
might
interaction
be a programming
here.
assignment that requires you to use these. Perhaps not. It depends on which programming assignments I pick for these last few that we have. But it's still.
So this is a quiz that he's inserted here. Are we expected to know about these set operations for the exam? You say yes, correct, and now it will allow you to
topic that you should be comfortable with and should be familiar with. So we're doing this video on it. Okay. So throughout this video.
Yeah, so this is my recommended way of doing it. If you've got slides, that's wonderful. If you want to write on the whiteboard, literally just there in the studio, he's sitting in front of a green screen, and you could just slide it up, and there's a whiteboard underneath it. So my hope is that we'll all be able to use that.
So when we'll be able to know that we'll be able to use the studio? Because like I don't have any like device to draw things, and I don't want to buy one.
Right.
Buy an iPad for the class. So so I would like to use the studio.
Yeah, well, so technically we can use the studio right now. I haven't actually done this. I mean, Ben's using it on a regular basis right now. It's just right now, you know, Todd sent out an email. I think all of you got copied on it, right? Do you get that email that says stay away from your office that was about a month ago?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that,
they changed all the codes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All the codes are gone.
Well,
Yeah.
he sent a follow-up, and it was probably just to faculty, is my guess, that said the one exception to that is you can use the studio, but he laid out a protocol for, you know, all the cleaning that you have to do in order to make use of the studio. So
Can
he
I-
did say that that summer instructors are allowed to use the studio. So I think that's a appropriate thing for you to do.
that's very nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I guess what we can say is we are allowed to do it. Right now I'm just recording out of my house because for the things I'm doing, the studio is not worth the amount of trouble I would have to go to make use of it. But for some of you, it might be really, really compelling. And I will forward you the email that Todd said. I mean, the reality is it's not all that complex about what we need to do with the studio. He just wanted to be really careful here. Go ahead and
yeah, so one of the course I am taking right now, so it is taught by Kwang, the machine learning course.
okay.
So he uses Zoom and he records the lectures through Zoom, and the video quality is really nice. So there is a whiteboard option in Zoom where you can write, where you can do everything, and you can record it also. So I was wondering that whether that's an option we can use or not.
You know, it's not a bad option actually. I've considered doing it myself. I'm only like 2 lectures into prepping for 252, and I'm already really hurting for the lack of the whiteboard because I've gotten so used to using it when I teach my classes. So I think it's worth exploring. Zoom, when you record, you can either record to the cloud, which basically means it'll show up in a Panopto directory. Or what you can do is you can have it record locally. And so after you've done the whole meeting, then, hey, Ashik, oh, okay, Ashik already dropped. But we'll have the recording for later. It takes an age to encode, but eventually they create an MP4 on your hard drive that you can then use for whatever you want.
Yeah, so this is I have just shared one link from that class.
Yeah.
And you can see, so it is good. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it might be a great thing to use.
Yeah. So yeah, I was planning to use that. Probably I will create a meeting and I will do a demo like 5 minutes and have a look.
Yeah.
How does it goes? If it goes well, then it is a good option for me.
Okay, cool. I'm delighted for that. All right. So what else?
Okay, go ahead, Becca.
So for releasing videos, like having people watch them on certain days of the week, how far in advance would you suggest releasing them for people who want to get ahead? Like if there's some people who would like to, you know, not just wait for the next set of videos, but, you know, go through it
right.
faster.
That is a really good question, and it's not something I feel strongly about because my summer courses have been synchronous with videos available after the fact. That has not been an issue in the past. I do think that you should get ahead for your sake.
Sure.
And I also, one of the things I'm realizing is there's a couple of windows in my class where it's really, really hard to cover enough material in the 3 hours I have to cover enough material to prepare them for what I want the next project to be. And so last summer when I taught my course, I actually had to defer projects like half a week because I wasn't going to finish things until Monday. I realized, happy day, that if I have my videos pre-recorded, Some weeks I could have more videos and say,
Mhm.
well, this is going to be a big one because I'm introducing a whole chunk of a concept. Watch all the videos. They're all due on Friday or Wednesday or whatever it is. And then I can go with my projects the way I planned. As far as having somebody go ahead, I am a big fan of overachievers.
Mhm.
If people get too far ahead, they do have the potential of forgetting things.
Right.
So I wouldn't go far ahead of what your project plan is.
Okay.
If you wanted to post all the projects on day one and all the videos on day one and let people catch up, that's not a bad idea.
Okay.
I do think as a practical matter, I mean, we all dream, and I have no doubt that all of you are going to be working hard.
Mhm.
The reality is you're not likely to outrun the course by much.
Right.
So, you know, as beautiful as it would be to have all your videos on week one, or, you know, I don't have them ready, but by week two, all of the videos for the semester are going to be done. Probably not. My
Right.
guess is more likely what will happen is you'll get a certain amount of lead and then you'll slowly burn through it. And somewhere around week 5 or week 6, you'll be like, I have to make a video today because it has to go out today so that students can watch it, right? You know, because I want to give them at least 3 days so they can watch the video because they got homework coming in a week, or, you know, whatever that is. That's my experience, at least, of teaching. If you guys are better than me, kudos to you. So, go ahead.
About 120, the exams. You used to have like 3 exams, right? 2 mids
Yes.
and 1 final. So,
Yep.
is it possible to make 2 exams, like 1 mid and 1 final? Is it a good idea or something?
It's always tempting in summer to do a 1+1. I don't think it's a good plan. Because when you get a 1+1, they start to get worth a very large amount, and students are always going to be stressed out on the first exam because they don't know the types of questions you're likely to ask or how the exam's going to go. In my experience teaching most courses, I do at least 2+1, and even on the summer I'll do 2+1. Now I know of some people who teach summer and they'll do 4+1. You know, every other week there's an exam. You can do that if you want to make the exam smaller. That's not what I've generally done, but there's nothing. I'll tell you what. In terms of department policy, a 1+1 is perfectly acceptable. But I
Okay.
think you and your students are both likely to have a lot more heartburn than if you did a 2+1.
Okay. So about the AutoGrader, like the script that I have to write for checking the grades, like the assignments.
Yes,
As I'm planning to use your assignments, can I use your auto scripts for the AutoGrader?
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually, I can show. Well, what? Oh, I'm still sharing Ben here. If you want, I will go now. I will give you more technical information. Actually, share the files, but let me show you roughly how the AutoGrader works. And I don't remember if I asked how many of you have some familiarity with Docker already.
I don't have
I'm
any.
familiar with Docker.
I'm sorry, I heard a 2 no's and then I heard.
Oh, I
Sorry. I'm familiar with Docker. I know like how to install and create a Docker environment and all that.
So you have the reality is that these AutoGraders are Docker underneath. If you know Docker, then you can just use Docker and it's really, really easy. If you don't know Docker, then you can kind of work your way around it manually. All right, so I'll go into 121 so I can create a dummy assignment here. So let's go here. I'm going to go to assignments over on the left. And this will show all of the assignments. Normally when you go into the dashboard, it only shows assignments that are either pending or that have a lot of grading needed. Things that have already been graded vanish off that main list. All right, I can go to create assignment. So you can set up an exam. I've not actually played with that. I haven't done most of this. I've done online. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Exam. This is where, if you want to use Examity, you'll set it up here. So you upload a PDF of exactly what the exam was. You upload scans of the exam, and it all works. The online assignment is how I did my midterm exam. It's basically designed for quizzes, but I just abused it for online assignments. You can actually go look into Exam 2 now that you all are TAs of 120. You can look at how I set up Exam 2. But when we're talking about AutoGrader, this is going to be a programming assignment. So we can create a new programming assignment, give it a name, example for the AutoGrader, and set up how many points it's going to be worth. So you can have a manual grading if you want. I think it requires, so the release date is the earliest that students will see this. I generally figure there's no reason not to release it immediately, but or at least release it once it's configured properly. And we'll make it due whenever, May 31st. Doesn't matter much. All right, so we're going to create an assignment. Now, this is how you set up the AutoGrader. And so they have two options here. First of all, if you know Docker or if you want to learn, I can work you through what I've learned. I didn't know about Docker either until a week ago. And I just taught myself enough about Docker to make this work. So it's not hard. So if you want, you can actually have your AutoGrader up on Docker Hub, and you just give it the correct information about the name of it. Make sure you read this documentation. It's not long, but it tells you how you have to configure the AutoGrader to make it work. If you don't want to use Docker, then you can use a zip file. And what this zip file will include is it's going to include a setup script. It's going to include the actual AutoGrader files. I think you only need one or two things. There's actually not a lot that you have to have here in order to make this work. But you'll create the zip file locally. You'll upload the zip file. Actually, I just moved away from this zip file to AutoGraders or to Docker, but I can show you my autograder.zip. I just upload it, and now it will run through a process. The problem here is that it's actually building a Docker image automatically, and this process takes 5 or 10 minutes. And you have to include all of your grading scripts inside there. So it's really, what's that?
Inside the zip file?
Yeah. Now, I have a hack to get around this. I haven't decided whether I'm going to use this and Docker both. Because if I've got a Docker image, I could just update the Docker image and re-image it. But I think I'm going to continue to use this as well. If we take a look, this will take a while to run. Well, actually, I'll just talk you through it. The way my AutoGrader actually works is that part of the setup script is that I cloned a GitHub repo. And so what my AutoGrader actually does, so the image that's stored inside Gradescope or inside Docker actually contains that cloned repo, but of course it has an out-of-date version of it. And so the very first step of my AutoGrader script is that I do a git pull. And I pull the latest version of that repo, and then I actually use what's in the repo as my actual AutoGrader scripts. And so then what happens is I can create these images at the beginning of the semester long before the AutoGrader exists. And it's all set up to automatically, I can map assignment names to the correct directory in the GitHub repo. So now in order to update my AutoGrader, all I do is I actually push new code up to GitHub, and then I rerun the AutoGrader script, and it picks up the latest changes. It's pretty cool how that works. You could do the same with Docker, but then what you'd end up with is this extremely long chain of like delta on top of delta on top of delta on top of delta. Maybe that's an acceptable option. I'm not sure that's what I would want to do, but it could be done. All right, so it's finally built here. So if we go and manage the submissions, what you'll see, I don't have a submission yet, so let me just create some sort of, I can drop any file into this. I'll put in my setup script. It's pointless. So the AutoGrader is going to kick off. Of course, it's going to error out because this AutoGrader doesn't know how to run. But what you can do is you can, once it's running, you can say debug via SSH. So I'm a big fan of, you don't want to debug your AutoGrader inside this interface, because it takes an age to build a new zip file, upload it to Gradescope, they create a new Docker image, then you test it out, you find out it's broken again. It's not great. But if you go take a look at it, debug via SSH, I'm going to skip that. I can actually just show you my own directory here. What I've got over here is inside my course directory, I've got my git clone. And so the way this basically works is that there's a, the run AutoGrader is not here. I've got a maps.json. This is just mapping titles of assignments to the directories. So if I go look in project 01-short, that's where the actual AutoGrader for one short resided. Yeah, and now I can dynamically write this AutoGrader as I want. Whenever it's working, I can just push my changes up to Git. I don't want to belabor this too much. We could talk about the details. Let me show you what the actual main scripts are. So I've actually got two files named run AutoGrader. Run AutoGrader is the script that Gradescope will run inside your Docker container. And so this is basically something that will it does the git pull, and then it parses through the various files, does a git checkout if it has to switch to a different branch, and then eventually ends up running the actual AutoGrader script inside the image. So this is the thing that's part of the Docker image. This is the AutoGrader that they actually got out of GitHub. If you don't want to create your own Docker image, then you have to provide in the zip file setup.sh. And setup.sh is a script that will run when they're first creating the Docker image. So it does things like it's creating various subdirectories, it's moving my SSH configuration into the right place, sets up the SSH known hosts. Here's our git clone. And then it installs basic software that I'm going to need in order to run my test cases. So this is what's actually running. When I look at configure AutoGrader over here, we look at the build output. Some of this is the standard stuff that they do every time. And then you see how it says installing SSH config? That's my script running. So this is my script getting everything set up. I installed the software that I needed so I could run Python 3. Anyway, So setup.sh runs once when the Docker image is created. It's not necessary if you have your own Docker code. So I'll send you all these files so that you guys can. Let me make a note so I'll remember. Send AutoGrader files to all. Okay. And let me. What do you want to? We're already 20 minutes over. I'm happy to keep talking and answering questions, or we can call a halt. But if you had questions, I would like to know how the scheduling and course prep is that I was talking about, how that's going with y'all.
So I'm gonna start. So I talked with Miss Surda, and I think I've decided on like having one midterm, one final, and 5 projects, kind of like that. But it also depends a lot on your materials and Eric's materials. So I
Okay.
still haven't finalized the schedule yet.
Yeah. Okay. So we I set that up for you guys. I knew that probably you wouldn't have it ready, but we really need to get moving on it so we can get that. I wasn't expecting you all to have it accomplished, but I wanted to make sure that we'd put it front and center to talk about it. Let me ask. I'll send ask Martin for syllabus template. There's a standard department syllabus that we do. Not all of the professors use it, so you may have seen this, you may not have. I'll ask Martine if there's any updates before we can start running on that, because that's one of our other tasks that we have to do soon, is to take our plan and put it into a syllabus, get that all written out. But I'll get back to you later or early next week about all of that. How about other people and how their course design schedule, how that's working out?
I'm thinking of holding office hours like on Thursday because the homework will be due on Friday, like
Okay,
Friday afternoon, as you said.
that's a
Like
good idea.
the long homeworks will be due on Friday, and the short ones will be maybe on Monday.
Okay,
And then AutoGrader, I will use AutoGrader because you you already have those, so I
right,
can
right,
use them. And about the exams, I just discussed with you already.
right.
And about the first week, maybe I will have one simple task due for the students.
Yeah, I would encourage you to look at the Python review projects that we've done in the spring and in the fall, and you don't have to do the same things, but kind of do something in the same range. Those were intended as not being technically challenging, but just enough to make sure that everybody knew, if they're coming from another language, they've learned enough about Python to get around. So something like that would make a lot of sense in 120.
Projects are the thing is those projects are really simple, right?
They are really simple, yeah.
Okay.
If you with summer, if you want to make them a little bit more challenging, you can. I normally don't worry about like having a really simple intro project. I mean, you don't want to, you are
Yeah.
burning through 10% of your schedule,
Yeah.
but I very often, what I'll do is I'll give them a real gentle intro because, they're learning tools, right? It's not just that they're learning Python, but they're learning, what is the class website and how do I upload to Gradescope and how do I work through all the practical nonsense of just getting a class running. And so I try to make my first project usually pretty easy. And then there's a big step function up to project 2, where we're actually starting to do technical challenge.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. So, Becca, how's scheduling and prep going for you?
Yeah, pretty good. So my plan is to do assignments due on Friday. How many office hours a week should we be holding?
I would plan at least 4.
Okay. Yeah, when I went through this morning, that's the one thing I forgot to think about. Sorry. And my plan is to use Gradescope for turning in homeworks and for grading, because I've seen that, because Josh used that in the algorithms class I took from him. I liked that you could map specific comments to questions
Okay.
for the grading. And yeah, and then the first week, Lester has like a math review, and so I figured
Yeah.
do like a small math review assignment.
Yeah,
And
that's a great one.
yeah.
I think when I taught 245, I didn't know at the time, but I actually violated the standards of how to teach, because I assigned it for I said you should work on it before class begins so that it was due on Monday of the first week or something like that. Now I would know better.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I may have gone through Lester's syllabus at least, and we'll talk about, what's the essentials to cover there, and tried to squish his into a 10-week schedule instead. So I've thought about that. Yeah.
And let's see. So, all right, Abu, do you have how much planning have you done for what your schedule is going to look like? So I think I've heard from Ahmad and Dilshadur, right?
Yeah. Oppo has already left. Ashik?
Oh, he still shows in my participant list.
Oh.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not trying to be the big scary teacher. I'm just trying to make sure we get on these things. Cool. Yeah, so anything else before we all log off? I know, Becca, if you're still available, we were going to talk about 245.
That's it for now.
Okay, cool. Well, I will get back to you about syllabus planning, and we can, syllabus planning is a good thing that kind of, makes us to figure out what our grading plan is going to be and what our schedule is going to be. So, well, I'll get back to you. And I do have my notes about the other things I'm supposed to send. I'm supposed to talk about configuring Examity, AutoGrader files to everybody, and all the 352 materials to Ahmad. So it's written down.
Did you figure out how to get PlayPosit linked with D2L?
Ah, yes, I was actually going to show you that. I figured that out. No, I didn't figure that out.
Yeah.
I asked Ben, and he told me what to do. All right, so let me share again. It turns out, as Ben had told me, it's not hard to do. You just have to find the right place to do it. So one of the things I noticed on a previous session, we all created classes in PlayPosit. Those are going to get thrown away because what I'm about to show you creates a class for us. It's going to be different than what you've created. Now, if you've created any bulbs so far, you could still carry those over. But here's the trick. You're going to go, you all can see D2L?
Mm-hmm.
All right, you're going to go into the Content tab, create, and so you're first going to create a module. I've never used Content tabs before, so I'm not sure exactly what to call them, but I'm probably going to do a module I don't know if I'm going to do a module per topic or probably a module per week. I think I will probably do a module per slide deck, because in 252 I've got I believe it's 10 slide decks already. So that would be roughly a week, but some of them are going to be short, some of them are going to be longer. So module 2 is binary numbers and addition. And so what you can do now is you can go into existing activities. You can go to PlayPosit. And I don't think I've created the, for some reason, you always have to click this same button, set bulb link. All right, so I have not actually created the next video yet. Yeah. But what you can do here is once you've got the bulb ready on PlayPosit, you go from D2L into PlayPosit, and when you click on this little D2L icon, then what it will do is it will create one of these things. These are the individual bulbs. And so each of these is automatically linked to a new grade item. So if you go over here to grades, what you've got here is that these are the grade items that were created representing PlayPosit. Now, a couple of things to know about. I had been operating on the assumption that I was going to do these little micro videos, 7 minutes long, 5 minutes long. So that's why this is just a class introduction. This is going over the syllabus. I broke it into 4 different lectures. And then what I found out is it's a pain to create a video, and it shows up as a different grade item here on D2L. And so every time you get one of these, it's not going to be inside the right folder. It's actually going to be out on the top level. So you have to go in here and you say, I'm going to edit that grade item. And you go over here and you assign it to the right category. In this case, I've already moved it, so it's in the right category. So you say class videos, save and close. Every time you create a new video, you have to go through that trouble. And then everything's going to be weighted. Well, there's a variety of ways you can configure the category. We'll talk a little bit more about D2L categories right now, but in the end, what I just came to the conclusion was that this was a lot more pain than I wanted to go through. So my updated plan is that I'm going to make 30 to 40 minute videos with PlayPosit questions scattered throughout them. And each of those videos would be roughly somewhere around what I might cover in a day's worth of lecture. Maybe an hour's worth of lecture under normal circumstances. Maybe it's less than what I would cover in one day in a summer course. And so anyway, it turns out it is pretty easy once you get here. When you go over, once you've actually created one of those bulbs, then there will be an auto-created class for you that you can see in PlayPosit. And yeah, so, and I'm noticing here, they created a class, but not all the bulbs are inside of it. One of the things I need to do is I need to unit test with one of my students. One of my current TAs is going to be a student in the summer. So I've already drafted him. He's going to give me the student experience from all of this. So I'm not sure why there's only 2 here instead of 4, but I'm working on it. And I'll also show you, see, are my videos prepped? I don't recall. I was working on some videos. I don't know if I've got additional videos that are ready yet. No, it doesn't look like they're ready to actually distribute. So I'll walk you guys through probably next week about creating a bulb. We've already done a little bit there, so I don't know that there's a lot more you need to see. But anyway, that's what I'm finding out about best practices about how to make this work. Other questions? Okay. Well, Becca, let's talk about 245, and if the rest of you want to drop off, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, cool. And I'm going to stop the recording here as well, since they're not going to need to know the rest.